Hello, hi and welcome to The Week Today. My name is Qassim Afzal. 30 minutes of what's happening around the world, what's happening in Manchester. As usual, I have my panel here with 3 guests, which I'll be introducing to you soon. The issues that we're going to be looking at is what's happening in Pakistan subcontinent. Prince Charles was in the Northwest this week and he said, are we losing the focus? He also pointed out that there's a shortage of blankets, a shortage of tents, and people are dying. And as the winter comes in swiftly, the death toll could double. Without any doubt, the community in the subcontinent are in great danger. Many countries have helped, but is it enough? One of the biggest shortfalls was helicopters. Here in Britain, we have sent many helicopters and we've pledged £33 million. But the problem is that it's not getting to the main points. We've got doctors on the ground helping out round the clock, but people are still dying. The death toll is close to 70,000 and keeps increasing. The question at hand is, are we doing enough? We should also be looking at the Eid festival, which is coming up soon. We'll be speaking to the police in how they will be engaging with the local community. And if you have more time, we should look at Clark's remarks. It's on the front page of the Asian News that who do not fight extremists, i.e. imams, can they be arrested? This has really upset the Muslim community in the Northwest region. Blair at the EU, well, the budget didn't go his way. Was Iran to sidetrack the world to get the front page news on the press today? And Galloway, is he on the way to the gallows again? Well, we should be looking at all these today. First of all, let me introduce you to my panel. First, on my right-hand side, I have Councillor Simon Ashley.
Good evening.
From Manchester, thank you. Then I have Superintendent David Kelly. Thank you very much for coming. And on Walaikum Salam, thank you very much. And on the right-hand side, from the Race Relations Office at the Met, I have Afzal Iqbal. Thank you for coming. I'll move straight to Councillor Ashley first on the issue of the earthquake. And as Prince Charles very clearly pointed out, that the focus seems to be moving away from the earthquake. The question is, why do you think that's happening?
I think the media have a very short-term view of news. I think that that some people feel that there's a fatigue mentality. If you keep showing pictures over and over again, that doesn't help a situation. I just think that perhaps the values of the media mean that something new, something different has got to be on their screens.
Well, if I can come over to David, when the issue of tsunami took place, I mean, Councillor Ashley saying that the media had their fill, but I remember that the tsunami was on all the time, on all the channels, and there wasn't a bigger issue. Why then have the media, do you think, moved away? Why do you think the public are becoming less aware or made less aware of the continuous problems that are facing the earthquake today?
First of all, can I start off by offering my sincerest condolences to all the people affected by that terrible event. I think you're right in relation to the coverage of the tsunami. It was on constantly, and I think the initial disaster that's taken place in terms of the earthquake was on, and it was well covered. But after the initial photographs, I think the media have to then look, well, where did they go to now for their sort of footage? And when you think there's something like 3 million people who are now homeless, winter's closing in, that could actually turn out to be a much bigger disaster than the earthquake itself. And I think it's a question of sort of getting that message across to who are in people who are in charge of the media to turn around and say, look, you know, this hasn't gone away. And it could actually get worse, and we could have, you know, 54,000 people dead. It could be a hell of a lot more than that. That's right. If it's not managed properly.
Well, I think over 50,000 have already perished, and we've still not got to certain regions. I mean, if you look at the papers today, we've got the Asian News here, and it says, save them. I have got nothing, nothing at all. I have no parents. I have lost everything. What is the point of surviving when my family are all gone? I wish I was buried alongside them. I mean,
it's awful.
That's awful, isn't it? I mean, if I can come over to Afzal. Afzal, I mean, you're a race relations officer, and we have a front page story here, which in the Northwest, people will be reading. And many people will be reading this are coming from Asian communities, multicultural communities. How do you think they would envisage this current situation, and looking at Britain as their home, maybe second or third generation, as taxpayers, those who contribute to the community? I mean, the multicultural community contributes something like 60 billion through taxes. I mean, how do you think they would feel?
I think first of all, Qassim, I think it's a tragedy what's happened in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with my colleagues what they've said as well. And I think there's been a lot of pledges from Europe and the wider world, but they've not come to fruition. And that's I think that's what Pakistan is asking for at this moment in time. We need money. I was listening to the TV only yesterday. Imran Khan was saying that if the people don't get the money within the next 3 to 4 weeks, and as Superintendent Keller has said, there will be more deaths, unfortunately, because the winter's setting in as well. And I think the community, you asked the question about the community here, I think the community here is looking towards Britain, who has helped, but can help a lot more as well, as other countries in the world can do so as well.
Yeah. I mean, Simon, let's come back here, that the Asian community feel, well, I say predominantly the Muslim community feel that a lot more could be done. And if I can go back, the first pledge that was put by our government was £100,000.
Oh yes, and even when you talk about the helicopters going, it took 12 days before they were there and they were active, and I know that there was a lot of criticism of the length of time and the amount that the government have put in, and you saw in the tsunami that the government very quickly increased the pledges they made once they saw the extent of the giving. I think our communities here in Manchester have actually done a wonderful job. I was at a warehouse down in Longsight just last week helping to board some blankets on with the councillors down in Longsight. So we are doing things. I think what we don't see is the concerted world effort that we saw after the tsunami. And I think we've got to get the message over to our leaders, our political leaders, to say this is just as great a tragedy as that was. Yes. And we expect to see the same type of amount of money being raised, the same type of amount of money being pledged from the government and the European Union.
If I can just labour that point slightly, yesterday I was in London, and interestingly somebody raised a question saying that this is their analysis. They said, well, even though our government has done something, and as you said, 12 days for the helicopters. I mean, the helicopters that got there, that was sent a couple of days ago, will take 7 days for them to be ready. But some of them felt that the political atmosphere wasn't right, that there's no election coming up, there was no great need for our government to respond that quickly. Elections are 4, maybe 5 years away, and they could act much more slower and more comfortably and proportionally to the way they wanted to, rather than to that what was the need of the area, and continues to be the need, because what was clear, it was the helicopters that was needed. Okay, the aid got there, the money got there, the pledges got there, but if you've been to the area of Chakoti or Muzaffarabad like I've been there, well, there's no real road links. So the question is, why didn't they send the helicopter straight away? I mean,
the answer that the government gave, and I'm not here to defend the government, was that it took that time to get the machines working, transport them, get the staff and the support mechanisms. And I think you're right. I heard Imran Khan saying that there is just a small window of opportunity. If the international community doesn't act in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then it will be too late. It won't be accessible even by helicopter if the snows and the winter sets in. And I really think it's very important that not just the Muslim community, but every right-minded person actually gets onto their political leaders, gets onto their MPs, gets onto the Prime Minister, and says we expect action on this. And if he can find time to criticise Iran and take time out of his schedule to criticise Iran, surely he could take a bit of time out of his schedule to concentrate on trying to bring relief to Pakistan and Kashmir.
That's right. What I seem to be picking up from the community is that they felt in the tsunami, there was a lot of Europeans there. You had French, Germans, you had British, you had Americans there. So there was a vested interest to respond immediately. And but also what's come out from a lot of communities that there is aid being collected and submitted. But the thing, a lot of the aid is actually coming from what you said, Simon, was predominantly from the Muslim communities. And a lot of them feel that, you know, if we're a multicultural community, when Muslims contributed to the tsunami without any calculation, just did it, then shouldn't they have got the same in return at their time of need?
I think you're right. I mean, the reality is the tsunami was seen as a multi-international disaster, if you like. This geographically is contained mainly within Pakistan. But obviously it's still internationally impacted because Manchester, for example, has a massive Pakistani community.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there are people in Manchester who've lost family, friends, relatives, who've not heard from them. And I think overall the response could have been better. But having sort of been involved in, thankfully, nothing anywhere near that scale, but I've been involved in some major incidents myself. Part of the response from whether it's government, whether it's the police, whether it's emergency services, can be delayed because sometimes the sheer scale of the disaster, it does overwhelm everybody, you know, because there's workers out there, voluntary workers, there's organisations out there, and the coordination of all the resources takes a lot of management, because you could have all the resources there, but they're not getting distributed. So the coordination and distribution has to be correct. And the other thing is, the delay in getting the helicopters over. I don't know what the conditions are, whether they have to prepare the helicopters to fly in high altitude conditions, whether that means servicing the helicopters, but assessing what your needs are, I mean, after a disaster that scale, I just think it's an absolute nightmare to try and do.
Well, and
I think that's all affected a lot of what's happened.
Qassim, I don't think they realised the scale of the devastation initially. That's why they pledged £10,000.
£100,000.
£100,000, sorry. And I think as soon as they did realise, they did up it. But I think a lot more could have been done. And you're absolutely right. I think the West need to remember the war on terror as well, how Pakistan helped and assisted in the war of terror.
Well, Pakistan put itself on the line.
Absolutely.
You know, and it has caused divisions within Pakistan, within the, let's say, the mullah regimes and with those in the government that worked alongside fighting terrorism. And obviously all of that has an effect upon our community here in Britain, which is very multicultural, and we're just swiftly coming through the Ramadan period, and inshallah we shall be coming over to celebrate Eid soon. But we'll discuss that in a minute. I'll just go back to the viewers. We're going to have a break for a few seconds there, and we'll be speaking about Eid and policing. So after this. Welcome back to the week today. We were discussing Eid as we're now passing through the Ramadan period, and policing as well, which has become a major issue. So first of all, I'd like to go across to Iqbal Afzal, who's a race relations officer in the police. Afzal, it's become a major planning strategy now to handle the Eid festival. I mean, I've been involved in the Eid festival since '95, and it just gets getting bigger and bigger. Why do you think that British, Pakistani especially, and British Muslims converge to Manchester on Eid?
I think Winslow Road has become a focal point for youngsters. I think one argument is that they've got nothing else to do, because if you look throughout the day, we go to prayer in the morning and then we celebrate within the family, relatives, relations. By 4 o'clock, we're a little bit bored and we think, well, what can we do? And the kids think, right, let's hire a car, let's go down to Winslow Road. But what it's stemmed off from going to Blackpool and then racing along to Winslow Road for a meal. And gradually throughout the years we've tried to police it in different ways, but rather than police it, I think we've tried to assist the Muslim community in celebrating Eid in a coordinated way, actually. But we do get thousands of people coming all over from England, UK. We've had people from Slough, from Scotland, etc. And it's only a minority of youth, Qassim, that cause a few problems. And I think what I would like to encourage, while I've got the spot here, is for families to start coming back onto Winslow Road and to start deviating these young people away from the problems that they do cause.
Yeah. I mean, you said the police are there to assist. Yeah, I mean, if I can come over to David on this. But a lot of young Asian youth think it's there to control. I mean, how do you envisage that? I mean, are there perceptions?
Yeah, I can see where some of the young Asians would sort of think that. The reality is, it has been a tradition for many, many years, and we did go through a period some years ago, I hasten to add, where it was getting particularly dangerous in terms of some of the driving standards. And the reality was that people's lives were generally at risk. So, being a police service, we worked with the community, we consulted widely with the business of people, restaurateurs, local residents, obviously members of the Muslim community, and sought their advice on the best way to police it. And we police it from the point of view of saying, come to Rusholme, come to Manchester, have a great time, but be safe, you know, just come and enjoy yourself. And we've constructed our operation now so that the actual traffic prevents the traffic going fast. And because there's so much of it, because we channel it in certain ways, it's actually crawling at a snail's pace. So the actual risks from any vehicles then are minimised. And as Afzal says, it is a great celebration. It is a major religious event, a major event in the calendar. And you know, I'd like people to sort of come to Rusholme, come to Manchester, and enjoy working with the police. Come and visit the police. We take people from the community with us on the operation. They're allowed access all areas, and they critique us and tell us what we're doing well and bad. And working in partnership like that has helped us, because it takes a lot of the problems away from me as the decision maker as to how to police it. But it is a good event. I mean, 5, 10, 15,000 people will be out next week.
I mean, it is a nice event, and it's nice that Manchester is a focus point. But with so many police officers there, do you not feel that young Asians would feel intimidated? I mean, many of them have compared this with a football match or a concert or a pop concert, and they're saying, well, you know, there's people coming out of football matches, and okay, they've had a few beers, and they're coming out of concerts, right? And some of them don't behave in an orderly manner, but a lot of them feel that there's a massive police presence which they feel intimidating. I mean, how do you curb that?
Well, we've taken advice on that, and the reality is, and I've got to say this, the overwhelming vast majority of people who come to celebrate Eid do so in the spirit of the religious festival and wanting to enjoy themselves peacefully. Unfortunately, there is a small element that does cause problems, and the reality is we have to manage that effectively. In order to try and seek the views, what we have done is consulted widely, and we sought the views of young Asian males as to how they feel about this. And I suppose the reality is there is a history of mistrust towards the police, you know, because unfortunately we don't go around telling people who've won the national lottery. We either deliver bad news, or we come at a time of emergency, or we're arresting people. Right, and it is that type of relationship. But what we are trying to do on the division is break down the barriers to sort of the police and community relationship, especially with younger communities, because obviously they're the community that we need to sort of speak to and bring on side. And we have gone to the extent of taking young members of the community out on patrol with us when we're doing things like stop and search, because that is a major bone of contention, a major issue for us, because people get caught up in that, and people get searched when they're doing nothing wrong, and sometimes the police do misuse the powers, and it causes a lot of damage and mistrust. And by bringing younger people into the planning process, which has been running now for about 4 or 5 months, it does help to bring those barriers down. But it's a long road. I've been on the division just for 2 years now. I've policed Eid a couple of times now. And compared to what it used to be like, it is much more orderly, it is much more of a festival, and the relationships between the police and the wider community are improving. So I'm hoping to break down some barriers.
There is an issue with people I've spoken to who have said that it's our Eid, let us celebrate it, why the hell are you policing it? Yeah, we don't want police officers here, let us celebrate it. But then we've got to listen to the resident community, the traders, and the Muslim community as well, who actually turn around and say, we need you to be a little bit harder with these young people, because they're giving Islam a bad name, they're giving Muslims around the country, around the world, a bad name as well. So we're really caught in the middle.
Well, Simon, I I mean, Afzal said that after 4 o'clock they've got nothing to do, whilst David said they're trying to engage with the police, take them out with themselves. If they've got nothing to do, and we've got maybe 80,000 Pakistani Kashmiris in Manchester, and if the whole of the country is converging to Manchester, surely as a councillor in Manchester, somebody in a prominent position like yourself, surely the council should be able to do something that will take young people's minds off this void environment after 4 o'clock and burn tyre on Wilmslow Road. And I'm sure Blackpool were very pleased for them to leave Blackpool, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, as a councillor...
I'm a Liberal Democrat councillor, we're the opposition, but we represent Longsight and Rusholme and Whalley Range and my own ward. I have about 700 Muslims, and I've collected the Eid cards and Eid Mubarak to them all in my constituents and across Manchester. And I think sometimes we forget that the Muslim community is as diverse as other communities. I've had Muslims speak to me and say, look, can you not get the police to sort out those lads, because you know they intimidate me, they give us a bad name. And I get the lads themselves saying, you know, can't the police give us a break? And I think the difficulty that the police have is they're in a very difficult position. And I don't expect the police to give Muslims any preferential treatment. I expect them to treat everybody equally. The gay community, the Chinese community, the Muslim community. They should listen. They should police sensitively, but they're there to do a job. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, there was that element that some people were feeling intimidated by the celebrations along Wilmslow Road, and I don't think that happens now. And it's a more diverse and a bigger mix of people that go out on Wilmslow Road to celebrate Eid now. So I'm comfortable with the job the police do. And of course there'll be individual incidents that I might want to criticise or the community might want to criticise. But I think, given when I was first a councillor 15 years ago and the chief constable we had at the time who thought that the gays were abnormal and things like that, I think we've moved a very, very long way in the way we police all our communities here in Manchester. The police have got to take some of the credit for that work, and the council should take some of that credit too.
Well, we're really coming to the end of the programme, and maybe if all of you want to give a 15-second message to start with.
If you've got any spare money whatsoever, please give it to the disaster funds of Pakistan.
David?
The Eid Festival is an opportunity to see how the police work with the community. I'd like to improve the representation of Asian members of the community, Muslim members of the community within the police service. So please come and work with the police, and I'd like to wish everybody Eid Mubarak.
And Simon?
Well, mine's going to be a mixture of the two. Obviously, Eid Mubarak, celebrate and your culture and have a great day. But also remember that there are people suffering in the world, and that you can't really just look on the bright side. You have an obligation to your brothers in Pakistan to help them as you can.
And sisters.
And sisters. Sorry, I'm politically incorrect saying sisters, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, thank my guests here, Afzal, David and Simon, all the viewers watching the programme. The message is very clear that there is devastation in the subcontinent, and if you can help, please help. But on Eid, go out, enjoy yourself and engage with the police. Once again, thank you very much. The Week Today with Qassim Afzal.